Hello there and welcome to this YouTube video where we are going to try and build the best possible wildcard team for match day 6, the semi-finals of Euro Fantasy 2024. We're going to have a look at all the key data for all of the players, see what we can deduce to try and put the best team together possible. We'll also talk about how many players sort of have from each team, and then at the end of the video I am going to show you my favourite wildcard team too. So just a reminder of the fixtures. We've got Spain playing France and England playing Netherlands. I've put the win percentages here, which teams that the bookies I think are most likely to win. We've got Spain at 33%, England second favourites 27%, France 25%, Netherlands 16%. So it feels like we need to lean our team a little bit towards Spain and a little bit towards England, particularly England, because they clearly fancy England to be a favourite to beat Netherlands, whereas obviously that France-Spain game, you get the impression from those odds that that is perceived as a little bit closer, and I would agree with the bookmakers and say that is a little bit of a closer game. So I haven't put a slide here on the goalkeepers. We're going to go straight into the defenders, but my two favourite goalkeepers would be Unai Simon and Pickford, the two best goalkeeper clean sheet percentages that we've got here. Spain top 38%, England second 37%. Those would be who I've gone with. So I think I've covered all of the key defenders that anyone might wish to put into their team. So apologies if I have missed anyone, but we've got the key data here for expected goals per 90, expected assists per 90s, and most importantly, the ball recoveries per match. The ball recoveries seem to be absolutely crucial, particularly as we're getting further and further into the tournament where the goals do seem to be drying up. We will see that when we look at the percentage likelihoods of players scoring in the midfielders and forwards. They are a lot lower than you would get earlier in the tournament. So because we're going to have tight games, we're going to have our players playing against each other. We're going to have attackers against defenders. So we need a way to lower our floor of players, our floor of the points, the floor of the points that the players can achieve. So by doing that, the best way to do that is to attack the ball recoveries, because that's not going to, your ceiling of points isn't going to be affected by someone scoring against them, because ball recoveries is just an independent thing that they will do. They'll get ball recoveries, they'll pick them up. So I have plotted in the ball recoveries there, and you will see that I've highlighted my favourite players in gold. These are the players that I want to talk about the most, but I won't limit to just talking about these players exclusively. So Koundé, he's the highest defender point scorer in the game. He's averaging 6.8 ball recoveries a match. This is the highest for France. France have been really good defensively, actually keeping plenty of clean sheets. And he's even got a decent expected assist per 90 at 0.17. Now, we all talk about Teo Hernandez being really attacking, but actually, looking at these set of data from the tournament so far, there isn't much in it between Koundé and Hernandez, but Koundé is picking up the recovery. So therefore, I think between those two, if you're looking to pick one, here's an absolute no-brainer. Obviously, you could go both. If you want to double up on French defence, then you've probably got a decision whether you want to go for Saliba or Teo Hernandez, whether you want to gamble a bit on the attacking side from Hernandez or just go for the safe ball recoveries with Saliba. So I've obviously made a decision on that, which I will share with you when we get to the end of the video when I show my team. Moving into Spain, it feels like there's only two real clear options to go for, and that will be Cucurella and Laporte, both identical ball recovery stats, 6.5 per 90. And Cucurella does edge it a little bit on the expected assist, or by quite a bit. Expected assist per 90 at 0.15, but you've got to remember these are such small numbers that still the likelihood of these returns coming are still very small. Cucurella's interestingly, Cucurella's a lot of his ball recoveries actually came in one match, so the data is a bit skewed. It's not quite a consistent set of recoveries across loads of games, where Laporte is more consistent. So that is actually why I think I prefer Laporte. I think he's a safer bet to those ball recoveries, just because he's been a bit more consistent with how he's got them. Guéhi, I think, is the number one England defender to go for. There is some doubt. There could be some doubt about whether his place is in jeopardy in the starting 11. So you could see that as a bit of a risky pick to go for. Konza came in and he was really solid, really good. But 4.7 million. And look at those ball recoveries. The highest ball recovery in the game, 9.3 per match. I mean, that is an extra 3 points straight off the bat, which is absolutely phenomenal, really, when you think about it. That's the same as getting an assist. So Guéhi would be my number one choice if you are worried about the potential of Guéhi getting, well, not dropped, not getting his place back in the team. Then the safest bet, unfortunately, would probably be to go for John Stones. But, I mean, you can see his data is a little bit iffy there at 4.2, not as good as Guéhi. Guéhi is the one we want. We want him to start. But Walker hasn't. I mean, I've not been impressed that much with Walker. Sorry, Walker, but I've not been 100% impressed with his performances so far in the tournament. And Trippier, I mean, there's lots of people talking anyway. There's a lot of pressure on his place, whether he's the right person to fit in that left wing back role, whatever we're going to play position for England. So there is some doubt about whether Trippier is actually going to keep his place in the team as well. So England defence is a little bit tricky. I'd like to think that Gahey would come back in because it would be harsh on him to not get his place back into the team. And then moving on to the Netherlands, I think there are two standout picks, which are De Vrij and Van Dijk. Both of their ball recovery data is identical, averaging 5.6 per match. De Vrij scored that goal in the last game. I mean, these goals ain't going to come around very often, so I wouldn't take that into our considerations whether we pick De Vrij or Van Dijk. Van Dijk, there is still these rumours that he could be on the penalties. And I do feel like Van Dijk is a bit of a big game player. He's the kind of player that you think would just pop up in the 90th minute or in extra time from a corner and score a winning header. But that's just my opinion on football. But I think that Van Dijk is probably the one that just edges it. But if you are short for funds, then I think you go for De Vrij at 5 million. And then finally, Ake, who has picked up 2 assists, but he's massively overperforming his expected sort of assists per 90. I mean, he could do it again, obviously, but I wouldn't count on it, and I wouldn't really take that too much into considerations of your of who you go for. I would much prefer to go for 1 or 2 centre-backs out of De Vrij and Van Dijk. Okay, and on to the midfield. And I actually think the midfield is one of the most interesting positions to look at it for the semi-finals because we're going to be focused on these ball recoveries. As I mentioned, we're expecting games to be tight. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, have a look at these percentage likelihoods of players scoring goals. These are really low. Bellingham 17%, Foden 16%, almost 16%, Saka 15%, Williams 15%. It feels unlikely that we're going to get a goal from any of our midfielders. So therefore, based on this, we kind of, again, this is the theme of this video, kind of need to focus on the ball recoveries, I would say. So the number 1 ball recovery in all of this data is Rodri at 6.6 million. He's really good value. And again, he is the kind of player that could pop up with a goal. He's not got the attacking data of Ruiz, Olmo and Williams, as you can see there, but he is the more consistent player because he's going to get those recoveries. So I do think there is definitely a position, there is definitely scope to have some of these more attacking Spanish players in our teams, but I think we're just sort of being more hopeful that we're going to get attacking returns in these tight games rather than feeling quite confident that they will come. Kante's ball recoveries aren't actually as high as I had sort of expected at 4 per match, which is only going to be an extra point. So I don't actually rate him as much as maybe other people quite do, but he has picked up 2 man of the matches as well, which is going in his favour. He's that kind of player that would pick up a man of the match because he runs around everywhere, does everything. He's usually the most noticed player on the pitch because he just literally covers every single blade of grass, doesn't he? So there is that going in his favour, but I wouldn't be absolutely desperate and rushing to get Kante into my team. Now, moving on to the England midfielders, we've got Bellingham, Rice, Saka and Foden. And we all know how England have looked going forward. This attacking data across all of them is absolutely shocking, to be honest. Just look at it. The highest XG per 90 is Bellingham at 0.11, which is crazy for such a big team like England in a major tournament, really, in my opinion. So I think Rice is the best player to go for. Again, we're talking about these ball recoveries, 7 ball recoveries per match on average. He did actually get an assist in the last game, so you could look at that as a positive. I don't know, I just feel like Rice is the safe bet to go. And if I was going for a second England midfielder, I think I would fractionally lean to Bellingham. But again, there really isn't that much in it between Bellingham and Saka. Saka actually is looking, on the eye test, as you call it, is looking really good in the tournament. But it's only really Rice from England that is standing out for me. And then where it gets tricky again, the Netherlands, because Simons has got 2 assists, so that has been a fairly decent return. Decent expected assist per 90 at 0.24. He's been okay, but at 7 million, he's not really forcing his way into my team very easily, if I'm honest. When you compare him to what you get for Williams, Olmo, Ruiz, for a similar amount of money and in a better team. And then the other 2 Netherlands defenders there, you got Schouten and Reinders, who I don't even think they're worth really discussing. I mean, Reinders' underlying data is okay, but again, he's not someone I would really recommend, particularly with how low his ball recoveries are too. We're not going to get, we need that high floor, I think, as I've mentioned many times, for our midfield. And then finally, moving on to those crucial forward positions. Again, I've put the percentage goal likelihood of each of these forward scoring. We've got Mbappe 30%, Kane 29%. So you've got a bit of a call there between who you go for, Kane or Mbappe. You've got Morata at 25%, who isn't actually suspended, even though it did look like he was getting a yellow. I think something I had lots of people saying he thought he was suspended, but he's not actually suspended. Depay, interestingly, comes in slightly higher than Gakpo. And I want to go straight into talking about Depay, actually, because Depay's underlying data is actually really good. 0.45 XG per 90. Everyone is going to be going for Gakpo. So if you're after a differential and you're looking to catch up, Depay's on set pieces too. He actually looks really good this tournament, Depay. I've enjoyed watching him this tournament. If you're after a differential, then Depay could be your option. If you just wanted to play it safe, then I think you go for Gakpo as the more all-rounder who could like to take goals, and you'll see his expected assists per 90 there at 0.4, which is quite high too. I think the other key debate is whether you're going to go for Kane or Mbappe. I mean, you could go both. Spoiler alert, in my wildcard team, I've only gone for one, and I've gone for Mbappe because his underlying data is better. Find some of that is skewed by the fact that he got a penalty, but even if you strip out the penalty and go for non-penalty XG per 90, he is still above Kane's data. And he slightly shades it in the percentage goal scorer odds, even if it's only by 1%. So all those things are leaning towards me preferring Mbappe. Then the other final slot is Yamal. I mean, his underlying data. I mean, everyone talks about how young he is and how fantastic he's doing, but to come up to a major tournament, his underlying data 0.44 XG per 90 and 0.53 expected assists per 90. I mean, that is just absolutely huge numbers. For 6.5 million, he's going to play. I think he's actually essential to have in our teams, would be Yamal. I mean, the bookies aren't quite rating him because he's not made it into this top 5 list that I put in there. But based on this underlying data, I would be having Yamal in my team. And I say he's cheap, so he facilitates any other options that you might want to go for. Okay, and as promised, here is my favourite wildcard team for match day 6. I've already alluded at the start of the video my 2 favourite goalkeepers, which are Pickford and Unai Simon. These are the 2 teams with the best clean sheet percentage likelihood, and they both play on different days, so we can maximise the use of substitutions if we need to. So it feels like a no-brainer for me to go for these 2 goalkeepers. In the defence, I've gone with double French, Saliba and Koundé. Koundé is the highest scoring defender in the game so far, best ball recovery for France, and I do think that chasing these ball recoveries is a better route to points than trying to go after these assists for the defender slots, which is why I've also gone with Saliba over Theo Hernandez. I've gone with one Spanish defender in Emerick Laporte. Again, back in the more consistent ball recoveries that Laporte and Cucurella have. I mentioned that they've got similar data for ball recoveries, but when you look into it a bit closer, Cucurella's was very polarised in that one fixture. I think it was against Italy, where Laporte has been a lot more consistent. So I think I prefer to back the more consistent player in Laporte, and maybe just think that Cucurella could have been a bit of a one-off. But if you need to save a little bit of money, then obviously Cucurella is very cheap at 4.5 million to completely get that if you do need to put Cucurella in instead. I have gone with Virgil van Dijk over De Vrij. Van Dijk, there is a chance that we still believe that he could be on the penalties. They've got similar ball recovery data to each other, but just those penalties really gives it the edge for me to go for Van Dijk over De Vrij. And moving into the midfield, this is where it gets interesting. I've gone with triple Spanish midfielders. I've gone with the middle 3, or what I believe will be the middle 3 of Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, and Dani Olmo. So their attacking output data is all fantastic. Attacking output data of Ruiz and Olmo is all fantastic. Rodri's got that fantastic ball recovery data, and as Ruiz and Olmo are the centre mids too, they might be able to chip in with an extra point for ball recoveries too if it's a bit of a tight, tense sort of affair. But I do believe that these I can sort of cover the main routes to attacking points if Spain do score some goals through Ruiz and Olmo, and then Yamal when we get onto the forward line there. Now, I've gone with Kante in this team. I know I wasn't overly gushing about him earlier, but I do believe that I need him in this team because I need that extra France coverage so that when teams get knocked out, and I've got all bases covered to make sure I can definitely get 11 players with my free transfers in the finals. So Kante has sort of come in to facilitate that. And then finally, I have gone with Declan Rice. I didn't fancy any of the other England attackers because I just don't trust England to score that many goals. But Declan Rice has been really consistent with the ball recoveries. He did a chip in with that assist, which was kind of useful too. And that basically those are the reasons why I've gone with Declan Rice. I don't think there'll be many goals in the England-Netherlands game, and I do think that there will be ball recoveries for Rice. I'm hoping he could even get 4 or 5 points, which I think would be enough to stick on. And then finally, moving into that forward line, we have got Yamal, whose underlying data is absolutely phenomenal. I almost think he's essential at that price point. I went with Mbappe over Kane. The reason I've gone with Mbappe is purely because he just slightly shades it on those goal-scoring odds by that extra 1%. I do think it is very close whether you go for Mbappe or Kane. It's a flip of of a coin. So it might depend on which teams you need to back to make sure you get an 11 out in the final. But for me, Mbappe slightly shades it, so I've gone with him. And then finally, that last striker in there is Cody Gakpo. But as I mentioned earlier, Depay is a really good choice if you're a differential. But if you're high up the ranks, looking to play it safe, stay at the top of your main league, I think Gakpo is the good one to go for. And he's also a bit more of an all-rounder. He's more likely to get assists and goals, whereas Depay may be limited to maybe just goals when you look at the underlying data of those players. So that is my favourite wildcard team for match day 6. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, drop a like. If you really loved it, please consider subscribing. Thank you for watching and good luck for match day 6.